Mystical Monday. This live stream is one of the 3 live stream series, and this first one is going to be dedicated to the divine will. Hi, dear ones. Allowing people to gather. Welcome to this conversation, contemplation on the power of divine will. What is that? What is that, and how do we align to it? It's so good to be here with you. This is one of my favorite conversations, anything mystical, anything that really feeds our spirit and gives us perspective and prepares us for inevitable waves of change that we are navigating right now as humanity. So let me know in the comments who is here with me. I can see you and I can greet you. And this transmission this transmission, sometimes my words don't cooperate, will be dedicated to divine will. Then the transmission number 2 will be dedicated to divine timing, and the transmission number 3 to divine mystery. It's a trilogy that came as an inspiration from Spirit. And before I begin, I'd like to share with you a little bit about myself. My name is Katerina. My last name is Satori, and this is the name that I received from Spirit, and it comes from Zen tradition. That really, the meaning of Satori is seeing into your true nature, right? It's like this flash of illumination of your consciousness where you see, oh, that is who I am. And that is the journey of all sincere spiritual seekers to receive illumination into who we are, why we're here, what is our soul task, right? So I'm excited to bring this conversation, and I walk a mystical path. My spirituality can be described as deep mysticism, divine wisdom. I resonate with theosophy, which is the study or dedication of divine wisdom. And I've been walking this path of living in full devotion to the will of the divine for a few years. So what I'll share with you today is based on the depth of experience and also depth of observation, right? Because I'm a deep, passionate student of the science of the soul, right? From as early as I remember, spirituality, the soul awakening, soul empowerment, all of these topics were deeply, deeply interesting for me. And what I have found on this path, there's these stages of awakening that we're going through, right? And the beginning, or kind of like the first stage of our journey, is when we are discovering our own personal will, right? We discover the power of our ability to focus our mind on a specific goal, right, or manifestation, and then cultivate discipline and take the right action and to see something through. So to develop the power of our personal will is a very healthy process for any human being, right? And we spend quite a bit of time in maturation to develop that ability to be congruent with our words and intentions and our actions, right? So developing our personal will is a key component of our spiritual and just evolutionary empowerment. But then there comes a time where we begin to awaken our mystical essence, right? And our personal will begins to receive a kind of a sort of a re-education from our higher self. And it is a beautiful curriculum when the true realization that it is not about us, right? That there is a higher will that is happening, and we're a part of that higher will. And when that realization comes and our life begins to go through rearrangement, I was gonna call it sacred dismantling. It's true. It's like there's these forces of higher destiny begin to enter our life. And no matter if we like it or if we don't like it, things beyond our control begin to happen. And we begin to receive this sacred curriculum on humility and surrender and unconditional trust. Then we begin to receive this new kind of understandings that there is the higher intelligence, there is a higher will that is happening, right? And it's a beautiful curriculum. For me, it began in the year 2015, where before that, for about 10 years, I was on a deep search for my true path in life. I actually had a very strong, what is it called? Very strong anxiety from time to time during those 10 years of waiting for my true Dharma to reveal itself to me. I had very strong moments of anxiety whether I would ever find my true path. And that was a big burden to carry, and it was a deep training to become more and more at peace with not knowing about your true direction in life. And only looking back at those 10 years of preparation, I say thank you, higher self, for not showing me, because my consciousness was not ready to see what you could have shown me. So when year 2015, I remember I was already maybe 2 years in discovering this path of service and entrepreneurship. And I remember a very specific moment where I invoked a prayer, and a prayer of surrender. It wasn't a surrender of the mind. It wasn't, an intellectual understanding. It was a true prayer of my whole being, asking the soul to lead the way. It was such a powerful moment. Before that, my personality was in charge. And when you develop a very strong personality, right, with a strong sense of personal identity, that shift between your personality is running your life, your personality is leading the show, right? The personality is in charge. And then there is this deep reorientation, right? You begin to ask your soul to lead the way, the transpersonal aspect of you to lead the way. And when it happens on the level of the being, it's impossible to forget that experience. I remember for me, it was a very symbolic experience. At that time, I didn't practice as much of a ritual work as I do right now, but I naturally knew that if I declare, if I speak my intention, asking my soul to take full charge of my life, of the direction of my life, I knew if the sincerity of intention is there, that prayer will be answered. And I remember next year, my every area of my life went through dismantling, from relationship to work environment to the place where I lived to the body, every single area. And I was carried through that process with so much grace, with so much support. You know, the support that I was yet to discover, the support that comes when you deeply surrender to your soul. And it was a really powerful and beautiful experience, because the next, I would say, 3 years of my life, my entire curriculum could be named Grace. You know, what happens when we surrender to the will of the divine? We begin to apprentice with grace. And grace has many faces. You know, it's not just the sweetness of divine lifting you up. Grace can be fierce. Grace can ask you to go through test after test after test to help you sculpt the strength of your spirit, to help you become resolute in your devotion, right? Going through that fire, going through the first few initiations of the soul. A true initiation will leave you completely, what's the word that I am looking for? Transformed, transfigured, transfiguration of the soul, right? When the old identity will be asked to shed. I feel one of the reasons this conversation wanted to be brought to my community is because we are seeing an incredible level of change in humanity that is happening. And so many of us are asking a question: what is my role right now? What is my contribution? What is my part right here on the planet? Because so many of us feel if we are here right now, it's because on the level of the soul, we choose to be here right now. And so many of us are yearning to be of service to a much, much higher ideal. And that's what I call divine will. Divine will is the higher aspiration, right? And what I know from what I have discovered on this path is that what you are capable to create with your personal will is just a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of what is possible for you to create when you surrender your being as a vessel to the divine will. So when we are, let's say the first chapter of our incarnation, when we develop our personality, we develop the ego, it's a very natural and healthy process, right? To develop who we are. And then when awakening comes, what is happening, we're untangling and emptying, right? And unlearning to create more space. So, to create more space for what? For the higher intelligence, for your higher self to enter your personality, right? So, you become a channel, you become an instrument in the hand of the divine. This is an exciting adventure of your consciousness where you realize this experience is not only about you. It's about you and the sacred task that you came here to fulfill during your life. You know, another word for divine will that I like to share with people is this contact that you make with the web of life, right? There is this web of life, a quantum field, all that exists, that has its pulse, that has its intelligence, that communicates everywhere at the speed of light, right? There's this great web of life. The image that I'm receiving right now is, of course, the film Avatar, the very first one. Remember the ancient tree and the people from that incredible planet, how they were all living connected to that web of life. So when we go through this process of spiritual awakening and we reconnect to the web of life that is everywhere around us, it begins to guide us. And all that is truly required from us is to develop our ability to hear again, to ability to establish that communication, you know? And one of the most direct way to do it is to learn to hear the voice of nature. This is why when we go through spiritual awakening, we crave being in nature. And right now the spring is on the way. And when the spring comes, one of my favorite things to do is to listen to the sounds of nature, listen to the sounds of the birds. To me, that's the sounds of the Divine Mother. You know, every bird is her melody. And the sound of the wind, the sound of the rain. So the very first step of attuning ourselves to the will of the divine is learning to hear the voice of nature. Because the nature is calling for us. And the nature has prepared a specific pathway for us. It's a path of deep, deep alignment, deep fulfillment, deep joy, deep service, deep tranquility and serenity. So this is the image that I keep seeing again and again. And that's what I hear from my guides, to bring this message that there is this web of life and there is this intelligence that is moving through that web. And we are the part of the web of life, right? We are not the director of this movie at all. And when we come to that realization, the response that I usually experience when I truly come to that realization, the response is the deep sense of humility. You know, deep sense of humility. Like, wow, I am not in control. What a great news. So when we surrender into the will of the divine, what we are asking for, we're asking for acceleration of purification of every area of our life, right? An ongoing purification, ongoing shedding. But the beauty of that is that the more you shed, the more you bloom. You know, I recently began growing roses. I know I keep talking about it because who would have thought that growing something like plants or flowers can be so fulfilling, can be so nurturing? Simple things, right? But I have found that every week I get to trim the dead leaves on my roses. And the more I do it, the more they bloom. So nature is the ultimate teacher, right? When we begin to hold the prayer, may the will of the whole be done. May the will of the divine be expressed through my life. We're asking for increased purification. We're asking for increased alignment, right? We're asking to be emptied out. So when something leaves your reality, or where you're being asked to surrender some of the habits that drain your power, some of the relationships that are not supportive to your ultimate growth, I know it can be scary for our personality to release one thing after another, right? But the only reason we'll be asked to release something so we can receive. Nature absorbs the vacuum. Every time you dare to trust and to release something that you have outgrown, release the dead branches, release the dead habits. So you walk on this sacred path of surrender, and surrender, there is nothing passive about surrender. Surrender is an active engagement with the web of life. Surrender is an active listening. What is the will of the divine is asking me to be of service of today. Life becomes so profoundly simple when you live like that. Yes, it will take some time to attune your instrument, right? So you become receptive. You begin to hear the voice of nature first, the voice of your heart, the voice of the divine, right? There's always talking. And then you notice the blooming. And that blooming within your heart, within your consciousness, within your energy becomes very encouraging to continue on that journey. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. Don't fear the acceleration of your karma. When you're walking the path of surrender, you are asking, you're asking, if you say, may your will be done, may I be the channel of your wisdom, of your divine grace, you're speeding up your evolution, right? It's an exciting process, because then you become more and more receptive to that will of the divine that is channeling through you. The sacred will of the whole. That's the part of the re-education of our personality, right? That happens when we ask the soul to lead the way. It's so beautiful. I often think one of my favorite mystical teachers, Peter Dunov, I brought you his book. I recommended this book, Benzo Duno, The Wellspring of Good. He was one of the last embodied spiritual masters of our century. And he lived in Bulgaria. And he incarnated in a not so easy times. I have found these great avatars, great spiritual masters. They choose some of the densest times in history, right? Yogananda, was here in 1930s, not an easy time. Bin Zaduna was here in 1940, right, yeah, 1940, and right when the World War II was happening. And it always gives me this inspiration that these incredible beings choose to incarnate in some of the most challenging times for humanity. And I always read, not always, I often read this book, and he talks about the path of disciple, the path of walking the path of a disciple. And to me, that's the path of surrender, right? And it's not something that you can force, it's something that you become ready for. And and the path of a disciple is the path of being tested the most. A lot of times, what I've noticed in the past in my own self and the people that come to me for guidance, people get disoriented when big tests arrive into their lives. And their human self is trying to figure out the meaning of the test, right? They say, oh, am I being punished by the universe? Did I do something wrong? Oh my God, did I create a bad luck? Is it bad karma, right? And what they're being trained to discover, being trained to see, is that when you begin to walk a path of a spiritual disciple, a path of your true Dharma, you're going to receive some powerful tests from the higher beings. They want to test your resolve. They want to test your devotion. It's just like in any school, in any university. Have you ever been in college or university or in school where you are not required to take a test? Never. They don't exist. Actually, to see if you integrated the lesson, if you embodied your discoveries, is how well are you going to meet the test of life. And soon your faith becomes so strong after meeting a test after test after test, and you continue to surrender your life on the altar of spirit. You continue to cultivate the relationship with your heart and the web of life. You continue to surrender your small plans and say, may the big plan of the divine be fulfilled through my life. Soon you earn the trust of the higher beings and you become a channel for them. It's a very, very fascinating topic to have a contemplation on, beloveds, because, I see Earth as an incredible adventure of consciousness. And it's also a school, right? We come here as souls to master very specific tasks and soul lessons and soul assignments. And one of the big ones is to learn how to surrender to the will of the divine. Not as some kind of external authority, some kind of a God construct that comes from some books that we were taught that they are holy and sacred, but as a direct mystical experience with the web of life, with the higher intelligence. Right? And I would say that begins when we have tasted everything in the external world. We chased all kind of surface egoic desires, right? We chased our tails and achievement and power and money, and kept finding the deep emptiness. And that emptiness and that soul ache would drive us to make a real contact with our spirit, right? And that's usually the beginning of our spiritual journey. And then through our journey, we uncover our gifts, we uncover our abilities, we find our community, we find our path. And then that's where the spiritual surrender curriculum begins. right? Because before we truly surrender, there tends to be a negotiation between our personality and soul. And it sounds something like this. Soul, I'm gonna let you lead the way. Just don't ask me to do that thing. Anything, but just don't ask me to do that thing, right? And I have found whatever I have a big no about something, that's my curriculum, to sit and to inquire. Where's the deep resistance? Why do I have so much fear about particular topic? So surrender to me is this very active receptivity to what is unfolding moment by moment. It is this deep engagement with the curriculum of life. It is so beautiful because you will be invited to see everything that shows up in your life as a sacred curriculum, sacred assignment. And when we receive this lesson, that we actually can merge our personal will with the will of the divine, right? When we open our eyes to see that that's the unity that we all seek. And that's the integration, that is the jewel of true spiritual path, integration. To become an instrument. Then our life begins to bloom. Then our life begins to reveal this very unique pattern. The great design. Another metaphor on this topic that I find deep resonance with is when we seek unification with divine will, we seek to see with our spiritual third eye the full tapestry that we are part of, right? Where we yearn to see that full design and our role in it. Wow. And then eventually we begin to see our lives as a canvas, right? A beautiful canvas. Every single one of us has been imagined by the will of the divine, by the will of the whole. Whenever I contemplate on what is the divine that I'm referring to, what is that divine? I refer to that presence, that quantum universal presence that we can feel every time we make a genuine contact with our heart. I often describe God as frequency, as a very unifying vibration of allness. Vibration of love, wisdom, and truth. And what is possible to experience in our moment by moment experience when our deepest desires to be unified with that frequency, with the frequency of the divine. So when I look at what is happening in the world right now, what I am seeing is the will of the divine on accelerated change in the collective. So much is available to us right now that has never been available before, from global connectivity to all types of wisdom teachings, spiritual teachings, universal wisdom teachings, mystery school curriculum. All of that has been unveiled and became easily available for us. Why? Why? So we open our hearts, reconnect to the web of life, and together make this evolutionary leap. When you live in absolute trust of everything that is unfolding, you begin to make different choices in life. You begin to trust your decisions, knowing that it is impossible for you to make a mistake. That's a point of liberation to celebrate. We can be so hard on ourselves. We can be so hard on ourselves. I'm speaking for myself right now. I can be so hard on myself. You know, my mind can go into that analysis of, was that choice the correct choice? Could have I chose differently? Was that a mistake? Was that a decision? And when I invoke a prayer of surrender, every single area of my life may it be an instrument for divine will. That I know even what looked like a mistake was my holy, sacred assignment. As human beings, we are designed to learn through mistakes, right? That understanding is so powerful. And on the level of the soul, there are no mistakes. There is a divine orchestration of our lessons. Every single lesson shows up to reveal something to us, right? We're being guided. We're being guided. Life is preparing something for us. So the prayer that I hold in my own life is to continue to empty my very, very small plans for my own incarnation, for this incarnation, and continue to ask to become a more spacious vessel for the will of the divine. And you know how I experience that in my personal life? Ongoing shedding, ongoing letting go, deep stillness, deep tranquility, and ongoing unveiling, ongoing surprise, ongoing sense of awe. I remember when I was tuning in to the intention for year 2023, my intention was to cultivate a sense of awe, to welcome whatever is coming to me, whatever is unfolding with this. Wow, this is incredible. I did not expect this. This totally took me by surprise. The sense of wonder, the sense of awe. And it creates that sense of buoyancy, the spiritual buoyancy, where you can cultivate that level of curiosity. Wow, look at where life is taking me now. Look at what life is asking me to speak about now. Look at what life is asking me to write about now. Look at what life is asking me to engage with. Right? Then we develop this very flexible spiritual spine. Being available for our true contribution moment by moment, to be so receptive to the web of life. What is the web of life is asking me to be available for right now? I remember I held this one prayer every single day for years. I would start my day with attunement, like I do every single morning, and listening and asking Spirit, how do you want me to serve today? Where do you need me today? Do you need me today? Okay, where? And then an image would flash, or I would hear a word, or I would just receive a flood of knowing. And slowly, that type of practice of asking the divine and listening and then carrying out the task that I would receive moment by moment, that led me to exactly where I live right now, how I live, what I do. Everything that I have in my reality is a result of deep, deep surrender to the will of the divine. And you know what I love about this curriculum? It's so dynamic. It keeps me on my toes. It keeps me alert to the mystery because I dance with the mystery. To me, that's the essence of living a mystical path. And this is a mystical Monday, right? I attract my fellow mystics. To me, the essence of living a mystical path versus a religious path, two huge differences. A religious path, you receive instructions from somebody outside of you, whether it's from old book or an old prophet or somebody behind the pupil, right? Comparing to a mystical path, you receive information, wisdom directly from nature, from the web of life, from your own heart, from your own body. A mystic is the person who has a direct experience to the sacred. Direct experience. And how do we establish that direct experience that's unique to every single person? So beautiful. So beautiful. There are two things that I see that can be really, really supportive for us to move through not only this year, but this entire decade, because we are seeing the build-up, right? This entire decade, starting year 2020, gave us a very clear energetic signature of this decade. Fast change, right? And what I see that can be really, really helpful for all of us, if you already live this, may this be an encouragement to strengthen that deeper than ever. And it's this direct communication with the web of life. And unification of your personal will with the will of the whole. When we talk about 5D consciousness, 5-dimensional shifts, embodying our oneness, this is a direct result of truly living from a 5-dimensional perspective. Unification of your will and the will of the divine. You become an instrument. And then all these invisible beings, such as masters of light, ascended masters, angels, and plant spirits, and all these invisible to our physical eyes beings, benevolent beings, they begin to channel their wisdom and their support and their guidance through your vessel, your instrument. So the level of support that we receive when we surrender our life and our personal will is indescribable, right? What I find can can require a lot of faith. In this is a transition time. Here we invoked the prayer of surrender, and here's a transition time. And in that transition time, you'll find yourself in the gap. And in those gaps, your faith will be tested. And every time you pass a test of faith, you ascend to a new level of consciousness every single time. And then you begin to look forward to those tests. You begin to welcome the challenges. You begin to welcome the alchemy. Because every time you pass through them, you access new codes, a new level of consciousness, and it becomes a very exciting adventure. Very exciting adventure. Do you have any questions, darlings? I just wanted to share this with you because it's such a powerful topic. There's many writings you can read on this topic. One of my favorite is by another favorite mystic, Sri Aurobindo. I talk about his book called The Mother. Just so powerful. He says there is only two things that are required to be able to walk through life without fear and with very strong protection from the divine. Just imagine you have a guaranteed protection, invisible cloak from the divine. Only two things are required: surrender, surrender and trust. Surrender and trust. Ultimate surrender to the divine. And when you read that book, The Mother by Sri Aurobindo, he talks about levels of dimensions of surrender. I can do a whole live stream just on surrender. So there is a surrender of the mind. There is a surrender of our psychic self. There is a surrender of our physical being. There is a surrender of the soul, right? And sometimes we go through an event that shakes us at the core, whether it could be a loss of a loved one or unexpected loss of something, right? Or death. Death is one of the most powerful teachers. Or the death of old self, where our surrender happens on many, many levels at the same time. And it's a very cleansing experience. But one thing I see again and again and again, at the depth of our surrender, we always are met with the most profound level of grace. If we truly, truly surrender, we meet grace face to face. And that is an encounter that will leave us radically transformed. Radically transformed. Once you're touched by grace, you're always touched by grace. It's like you are opening your angelic wings. Again, I want to quote this mystic, Benzo Duno. Albert Einstein considered him to be his spiritual teacher. This is the level of the spiritual master, right? And he talks about that humans, we are right in the middle between animals and angels. The aim of a human experience is to help us become more angelic. And what does it mean to become more angelic, right? To refine our soul essence and to become surrendered to the will of the divine. So you can read that. It's really, really powerful, this book. Rebecca, how do you define grace? The spirit of the sacred feminine, the spirit of divine mother, Rebecca. That's grace. That's grace. So, as you know, I'm a big student of Richard Rudd, who brought us Gene Keys, who brought us Sacred Seven Seals. He just keeps publishing such profound, embodied mystical teachings. And he brought the teachings of the seven sacred seals. And the teaching was that every time we see the increase of unrest on the planet, whether it's war, armed conflict, weather, weather disruption, right? People are literally losing lives with the earthquakes or the weather disruptions, so suffering. And it can be incredibly challenging to witness the suffering and feel and really like touch deep the feeling of powerlessness, right? It can be really intense. Well, one of the things on grace that he brought, that with the inflow of unrest and suffering in the world, equal amount of grace arrives to the planet. Equal amount of grace. Suffering and grace come together. So grace is like this divine support that lifts you up. Only one requirement: ego gets to move out of the way for that grace to lift us up and to transform us. Yeah. And the ego, our ego, is a wonderful, it can be a wonderful companion once it being re-educated to be of service to the soul. You're so welcome. Yeah, let me know if you have any other questions. I feel like the part of opening our ancient eyes and to see to see our human journey and the sacredness of this life is the path of the surrender. It's a leap of consciousness, right? It's a leap of consciousness where we say, not my will be done, but your will. Asking that web of life to inform our steps, to guide our life. So powerful. Another book that comes to mind is Sacred Contracts by Carolyn Myss. I remember when I discovered that book, I carried it everywhere. I couldn't get enough. I was just discovering my sacred soul contract. Yes, every single human being has a sacred soul contract. It's just like it's a blueprint of our sacred destiny. Every single human being has one. Do we open ourselves up and begin to seek it? We begin to yearn for it, right? We begin to live, search that true path in life. Yeah, but it's always been within. It's always been within. And then when you connect to it, you seek to surrender to your higher destiny. That's another word for divine will, is your higher destiny, your higher path. I will conclude this conversation with an invocation that I offer to you. It's a beautiful one, and it goes something like this. I choose my highest destiny. I choose my highest path, and I choose to surrender fully to the will of the divine. I trust myself. I trust my soul. I trust this moment. And beloveds, if you already live in surrender, it's a very tantric way to live. What I mean by that, you dance with existence, right? You dance with existence. Everything you see is one divine face. Soon it becomes an ecstatic dance. When the purification moves away and clears the debris, what begins to shine is that mystical heart begins to shine. That begins to be your compass, right? That's the compass. Your mystical heart that is available for life, that doesn't have any shields or guards, has discernment. The awakened mystical heart has discernment. It can see truth, right? It can choose truth, but it's not afraid of life. It's not afraid of suffering. It's not afraid of tests. It actually welcomes the challenges. It's not afraid of fear. It welcomes it as a purifying methods to open up that space even more and to shine even more. What a beautiful curriculum. And I would just conclude on this one. If you are walking the path of a spiritual disciple, if this is your journey, you can ask your higher self and the team of guides that work with you to help accelerate your awakening, to help accelerate your remembrance, to help accelerate the unfolding of your spiritual DNA. You can ask for that, knowing that you will be divinely supported through acceleration, right? You'll be divinely supported through your curriculum, through your acceleration. What are you asking? You're asking to bloom in the fullness of your divinity. That's what you're truly asking. What a powerful prayer. Yes, you're so welcome. It's so good to be with you. I love you. I am I'm here to be one of the many, many messengers on the planet. There are so many messengers. We all soon, all of us on the spiritual path. That's a part of our curriculum, to be a messenger, right? To be fully aware of the impact that we have on the field around us. And when we seek to unify our will of the whole with the will of the whole, we become a vessel for that divine wisdom. On this note, beloveds, may you have a powerful week. We just had a new moon in Pisces, so it's a very mystical energy. Every new moon is a new chapter. It's a new cycle, So for the next 2 weeks, this is the time to encode your reality. What do you desire to experience? What do you desire to create? What do you desire to receive? And to listen deeply. What does the will of the divine wants to express through you right now? That's a beautiful curriculum. I love being with you. So fulfilling to my heart. Thank you, thank you, thank you. May you remember yourself as divine spark of wholeness, and may you continue to trust the guidance of your heart. Oh, that was your first Mystical Monday. Oh, thanks, Martin. Yes. I love bringing these conversations because I find the deeper I surrender, the more ease and magic flows through my life. And people ask me, Katerina, how all these magical things are happening? And it's because I'm getting better and better of getting out of the way and allowing the will of the whole, the will of the divine, right? And the will of the divine speak to us through our hearts. And joy is your compass, right? Joy is your compass. Follow your joy, follow your heart, and hold that prayer. May the will of the divine be fulfilled in my life. And soon, your life begins to bloom in synchronicity, in miracles, in divine guidance, pure, pure beauty. I love you. May you be blessed. I will see you next Monday when we talk about divine timing.